I'm on my way to my Father, but I will return.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I further bear witness that Almighty Allah came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, and that he raised the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and has placed him on his throne of glory and power and dominion over the universe. And I further bear witness that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is his Christ, the Lamb of God, through whom Allah is establishing his eternal kingdom. Assalamu alaikum. I am Karriem Allah, and we begin this announcement with these verses from the Holy Quran. So when the trumpet is blown with a single blast, and the earth and the mountains are borne away and crushed with one crash, on that day will the event come to pass, and the heaven will be cleft asunder, so that day it will be frail, and the angels will be on its sides, and above them 8 will bear that day thy Lord's throne of power. Now these verses are from Surah or chapter 69 of the Holy Quran, which is entitled Al-Haq, which is translated as the sure truth, or the sure reality, or the inevitable. The Quran and Bible generally describe Almighty Allah as a single human being having power over creation. For example, in the Old Testament, it states in part, "But the Lord is the true God. At his wrath the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not abide or be able to abide his indignation." Now, indignation is a very deep sense of disgust and anger caused by gross injustice. Regarding this prophecy, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad states, "All around the earth, there has not been one section of the world in which the original man has been, or where he now lives, that has not been touched or ruled by the evil of gods of the old world. The God of righteousness and peace today has made his appearance to take to himself the rule of the nations under the government of peace, freedom, justice, and equality." The God of righteousness, whom the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is referring, is Master Fard Muhammad, who revealed himself in the U.S. in 1930. Now, there is much that has happened since that time that affirms that the earth and all its inhabitants are under Master Fard Muhammad's power to do whatsoever he wills. Now, Surah 69, again, the sure reality, provides some details that describe how Almighty Allah takes to himself the rule over the nations of the earth. Again, from the outset reading, verses 13 through 17 describe the time in allegorical form that we have entered. And this time is the execution of Almighty Allah's cataclysmic wrath. My announcement on April 14th, about 3 weeks ago, has established this fact. Through the destructive tornadoes, rain, hail, and wind that have gripped the Midwest, the South, and the Southwest of the United States since that announcement. And this destruction continues as I speak right now, and it will continue. Now, I'm here to make another announcement regarding Almighty Allah's incoming wrath on specific cities in the United States and throughout the world. So you will know that it is specifically his wrath and won't be able to color it out of what it is in fact. Now, Surah 69 describes the ill fate of a few lands or peoples that were completely destroyed by Almighty Allah's wrath. For example, the Quran talks about, in this surah, of course, the people of Ad and Thamud and Pharaoh and Noah. The Holy Quran also mentions, as the Bible does, Sodom and Gomorrah. The wickedness of this world across the board has made the evils of these previously destroyed peoples appear like child's play. What then should the earth's inhabitants, meaning you, expect from Almighty Allah? Now, verse 17 of Surah 69 establishes the fact that men, who are called angels, are responsible for the execution of Almighty Allah's wrath upon the inhabitants of the earth. The Bible states it a little differently because it identifies to some degree the eight who are bearing the Lord's throne. For example, in Matthew 13, Jesus is described as stating, "The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity," meaning evil, "and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and the gnashing of teeth." So no doubt Jesus is describing the judgment of this world by the hand of the Son of Man. Here, furnace means the wrath of Almighty Allah, which will include or which will encircle and envelop the wicked inhabitants of this earth. They will not be able to get out from under it, hence the wailing and gnashing of teeth. Now, in the book of Revelation, again in the Bible, it states, "And I," this is John the Revelator speaking, "turned to see the voice that spake with me. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle." Now, the 7 angels here are referred to as the 7 golden candlesticks, along with the Son of Man. This equates to 8. Revelation 1, these verses 12 and 13. Now, this Son of Man is the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Returning to Surah 69, the sure truth. Again, it states in verse 13, "So when the trumpet is blown with a single blast," what does that mean? In my previous announcement several weeks ago, I declared and described how I am the rod mentioned in Psalms 110. I am the rod of the strength of the Christ, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, meaning that I am born of him. And I am sent forth by the Lord, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to execute the divine judgment of Almighty Allah on this world. So the trumpet mentioned in Surah 69 is the same as the rod mentioned in Psalms 110. The single blast represents my single or exclusive purpose, which is the execution of Almighty Allah's wrath. Now consider these words from the Honorable Louis Farrakhan during part 58 of his series, titled "The Time and What Must Be Done." This was the final part or episode of that series. And at about the 36-minute mark, he states the following: "I am a trumpet of God, and it is wise that you listen to this trumpet because there is another trumpet coming behind me, and the blast of that trumpet means death. Now, since the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, who is a man, is a trumpet of God, then what can the trumpet who comes behind or after him be other than a man? And I am that trumpet. So this brings me to my announcement today, which consists of two parts. First, or the first part of this announcement involves Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where the Louisiana Supreme Court ruled just recently that a new city, which is to be called St. George, and it is majority white, can be established apart from the city of Baton Rouge, which is majority black. Now, you can find the details of this online. Most of the people forming this new city of St. George are considered affluent. Some would call that wealthy. Now, although self-determination is a human and civil right, black people in America have not been able to exercise this freedom. In fact, we have experienced the opposite under the rule of the Caucasian people to this day, which is different forms of slavery. This is a part of our sad legacy in the United States. The legacy of white people's or Caucasian people's self-determination has been through the destruction of black people in black neighborhoods. In the end, the flourishing of St. George as a city will be no different. It will be no different. Black people know this. Caucasian people know this. And the Louisiana Supreme Court knows this. So diabolical schemes against the black and poor residents of Baton Rouge in order to accommodate the new city of St. George have been underway. This is the modus operandi of Caucasian people, especially wealthy ones who have significant influence over legislation and over the direction of economic resources. And black people, again, have been victims of this. Now, the idea of the white people or Caucasian people who champion St. George in becoming a city has been and remains a staple in the minds of white people all over the country. And again, we have been victimized by these kinds of tactics. To the people forming the city of St. George, yes, the Louisiana Supreme Court is for you, which was and is to be expected. But I am against you. And you will learn very quickly, along with millions of Caucasian people in the U.S. and throughout the world who think like you, what my being against you means. And you will learn that quickly. Now, the state of Louisiana will be stricken with the wrath of Almighty Allah because of the legacy of your inhumane treachery and murder of his chosen people, the black people of the Western Hemisphere, the black people of Louisiana. From this day, you will begin paying severely the price for the enormous injustices heaped on black people through your so-called industrial prison system dating back to post-emancipation. Does the prison called Angola ring a bell? Well, you are going to pay dearly for what you have done to us. the state of Louisiana. Now moving to the second part of this announcement of Almighty Allah's wrath on specific cities in the United States and throughout the world. This part involves Psalms 110, which again states, verse 1, "The Lord said unto my Lord, sit at my right until I make thine enemies thy footstool." And again, the Lord speaking is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And my Lord is the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, whom he has set at his right hand. Just because he has not departed from among us does not mean that he is not on the right hand of the Almighty Allah. So who are the enemies of the Messiah, who is the Christ? The Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Well, the enemies of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan are the enemies of the truth. The enemies of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan are the enemies of Almighty Allah. The enemies of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan are the enemies of his people, the black people of the Western Hemisphere. And according to the Messianic prophecies, these enemies include nearly everyone. Now, a footstool is a lowly thing. This is obvious. It is the wrath of Almighty Allah that makes the enemies of the Christ into footstools. Now, Revelation 11 gives us a prophecy related to Almighty Allah's wrath that is being fulfilled at this time as I sit here. It states, I, Elijah Muhammad. This is from the book of Revelation, which appears to be John, the Revelator, speaking, but he's speaking in the place of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In fulfillment, this is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speaking. And I, Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. Now, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is one of these witnesses, and I am the other witness. Now, as it pertains to verse 5, the U.S. government cannot deny the fact that it tried on numerous occasions to assassinate the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And there is a price to pay for each occasion. The U.S. government cannot deny the fact that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was hurt in one of its attempts to murder him. The most known of the U.S. government's attempt to kill the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, or attempts to kill the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, was when the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was intentionally given an overabundance of radiated seeds under the so-called treatment of prostate cancer, or the auspices of prostate cancer treatment. As a result, he has suffered greatly for decades since that failed attempt to murder him. Did you, the U.S. government, not think that you would have to pay for any of this? Well, I am here on behalf of Almighty Allah to collect this enormous payment, which you really cannot pay because even your life is far less than the payment due. Now, in the Supreme Wisdom Lessons, we can read the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's answer to a question raised by the Supreme Being, Master Fard Muhammad, regarding the real cause of rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. The synagogue of Satan, through the FBI, raided the Temple of Islam and the home of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1942. So they know the reality of who is in control of the forces of nature. But they don't teach you that. Well, the answer given by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to Master Fard Muhammad's question states in part, earthquakes are caused by the Son of Man by experimenting on high explosion. In fact, all the above, meaning rain and hail and snow, is caused by the Son of Man. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was taught by the Supreme Being, Master Fard Muhammad, so he was and is very much correct. However, the scientists of this divinely condemned world, and that's what you are, you're taught by the synagogue of Satan. And unfortunately, most of you believe them. Well, the day of judgment is here. And the day of judgment is the time when what you claim the truth to be is tested to see whether or not it is in fact the truth. I am announcing the wrath of Almighty Allah on the following cities of the United States: Boston, Massachusetts; New York, New York; Philadelphia, Pennsylvania; Baltimore, Maryland; Chicago, Illinois; and Dallas, Texas. Each of these cities will be stricken with major earthquakes. I am announcing the wrath of Almighty Allah on these cities as well: Tokyo, Japan; Ottawa, Canada; Rio de Janeiro, Brazil; London, England; Rome, Italy; Brussels, Belgium; Munich, Germany; Warsaw, Poland; Moscow, Russia; Dubai, United Arab Emirates; and Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Each of these cities will be stricken with major earthquakes. May Almighty Allah continue to favor His chosen people, the black people of the Western Hemisphere, with the protection and salvation He promised them through His prophets. Assalamu alaikum.